Ko whenua hou, tu motu. Ko puki o hou, tu manga. Ko waituna, te awa. Ko takatimu, te waka. Ko whoririmu, toko te puna. Ko Ngāti Māmoe, kai tahu na iwi. Ko Claire Johnstone, toko ingoa. It's an absolute honour to be here today, but particularly to follow Takarei. The work that he's talking about is actually my whānau, so I didn't know a lot of that stuff existed. So for me, that was really exciting. So thank you, Dwayne, for inviting me, because if I don't understand all the geospatial stuff, I know where to find my stuff now, so thank you. My team are from New Zealand Police, and we form part of the National Intelligence Centre. I'm not a police officer, and like a few others here, I'm not a geospatial specialist. In fact, I barely know left from right. Anyone that's travelled with me knows that. And I really didn't understand what eastings and northings were till recently, and still I'm actually not quite sure, but I do know they're important. But geospatial information on maps has been a fundamental part of my varied career. My early background is NZEUC, which is an acronym for North East, West and South. What it means practically, it is as it is now and or the immediate past. As a reporter, that was my focus, not too dissimilar from police. And while I'm not a specialist, it doesn't mean I don't understand the use of geospatial information for decision making. I've used it throughout my career. Some of you wouldn't have even been born in this time, but I was a young reporter when Cyclone Bowler hit the east coast of New Zealand in March 1988. It's a prime example of how we should use maps. At that time, we listened to the radio, we listened to police reports, we haunted civil defence to try and understand the unfolding story. It was amazing how many roads were blocked off, but I pushed a little Toyota 1200 into floodwaters and hoped to God my boss would never find out. But in the end, we couldn't get much beyond the city boundary. It was catching a ride in a helicopter that showed us the extent of the damage. Hillsides that now looked like rivers of mud, utter devastation of farms and families, isolated, as it turned out, for months. Post-Bowler, I decided to double my money and go and join the regional council. And my first job was to suggest to these farmers that they should retire the land and stop farming what had been generations of land they should never have farmed. The soil scientists had the maps and showed them what the issues were. It was very difficult to convince them to retire land, but in the end, many of them signed up for a 20-year subsidised plan to plant trees. It's quite a different area now when you actually fly over it and look at it to what it was back then. I later moved to economic development, where I discovered there were things like soil maps, and you could tell people to grow blueberries in a particular area, and that would actually change the economy. In Wanganui, working with iwi landholders, I spoke to them about geospatial, and Dwayne will tell you that I have a tendency to exaggerate, but they asked me how good was geospatial, and I said it could get down to one tree. There was absolute silence in the room and a lot of murmuring. Later, I was told that they really weren't very interested in my geospatial ideas. It's because they had a more profitable crop. It was a more valuable form of income, and eyes in the sky were not that good, and therefore it was not desirable. I was a bit stunned, actually, at that time. I wouldn't be now. The difference with police and some of the other places I've worked in is that it needs to be more immediate. It's a very, very fast-paced environment, and anyone that comes to work for us actually goes into shock for a while. I think Dwayne's still recovering. But when you leave a station, you need to know whether you turn left or right. As a National Intelligence team, we try to provide timely, accurate, and relevant insight and foresight to assist the tactical operations, to assist the decision makers, assist with making the decision. I'm not referring to a jobs-on situation. More, if we can show spatial patterns by using geography and opportunity, we can enable practical crime prevention solutions tailored to specific needs. So insight for us is understanding beyond what is immediately observable. Foresight is what we can expect in the future. We work mostly in the insight space for geospatial, though we also provide foresight. Many of you will be well aware of the recent protests at Parliament, and I'll go back to the helicopter thing. All I wanted was a helicopter, but they wouldn't give me one. The reason for that is there's no fly zone over Parliament, so we had to try and find out what was going on. I know that the team walked the streets day and night just trying to figure out where the cars were parked. So we tried to use drones, but we weren't able to use drones because of that. But we still kept an eye on what was going on. But one Sunday evening, we got asked, where is it best to place 1 metre concrete bollards to stop protesters parking cars or fleeing onto streets of Parliament or likely routes offenders might take. This was quickly referred to as the Minecraft maps, as each block was 1 metre square, a 1 metre square brick. Dwayne says sorry about the mess, but he had a number of blocks, very limited number. So we do get used for that sort of thing to try and figure out what to do. You would have thought we'd figured that out at the beginning, but we didn't. So, but luckily we had thought about it, and Dwayne was able to do it very quickly. We're also asked occasionally to go back in time for cold cases, in the hope that new technology, like DNA, can catch up with the past. There are some things we can do looking backwards, but finding a buried body from 10 years ago or 20 years ago is pretty hard. Where's a DeLorean when you need it? But what we can do now, because of cell phones and satellites and personal habits and a bit of criminal stupidity, is find out where they might have buried someone today. So, for example, there was a murder in the Central North Island plateau. Well, they actually probably killed him in Auckland. But through polling of phones in the area, we could identify the suspects where we thought they might have gone. And lo and behold, the killers decided to help us as well because they'd taken a photo of where they buried the body. So it was pretty easy to pinpoint those guys, and they were prosecuted, of course. In other cases, we've been able to tell the police where offenders may have absconded to. So we pull from a huge database, and that database will tell us who you're associated with. If we've had anything to do with you, we'll often know your associates and where they are, and we can predict where you might go to if you're on the run. That sort of stuff, there's a guy missing at the moment, we're able to do that right now and say, hey, here's some clues. So what we do is use the data that's already loaded into a visual dashboard. We then give that to the frontline safety team, and from that they're able to find the people they're looking for. But in my opinion, we don't use geospatial information enough, and for me, that's a continual fight. So how and why have New Zealand Police built their geospatial capability? There's been a heck of a lot that's happened in the last 15 years. Pike River Mine, the Christchurch earthquakes, the mosques, I think there's a map up there now, White Island, the convoy that I just spoke about in Parliament. All of these events needed and benefited from geospatial information. But when I arrived in police 3 years ago, I expected that was all there. I wanted to see a sophisticated system, and I wanted to join police because of a GIS team. While I don't watch NCIS, it was in my mind that it would be flash, and we would have state-of-the-art systems. I thought the national and district coordination centres would have big screens, we'd know where every cop car in the country was, we'd have active crime scenes. I've got a pretty big imagination. Turned out I was wrong. What I found instead were paper maps, which we still use, and there is a place for them, clunky, outdated mapping systems, plotters without paper or ink, and no dedicated staff. There were very few maps used in any intelligence products, and I think when people are busy, pictures are worth a heck of a lot more than thousands of words. So this is not to say police didn't possess some GIS capability. It's more that it wasn't coordinated at that stage, and it wasn't seen as a critical system. And police were not alone, as we all know. Luckily, police had started the journey. Eagle had been in there and told them what they needed to do. But when I arrived, I needed permanent staff. I went to the bosses and I said, I need some staff. Now, I'm sure you've heard that word no. Well, no is a frequent word that you'll learn over your careers. So I have another thing that I always say, is we haven't got the money, so we'll have to think. The second thing I think about is how we can use other people's money. So then I met this incredibly smart woman who's here today called Lou, and she was hidden away in the Bay of Plenty police station. And she seemed to know heaps about geospatial stuff. She was very clever. So using her knowledge, and me talking her boss into what it really meant to do something for police, she came and worked for us. Basically, other people's money. Over the last year, I've found lots of other people's money, and I've now got a team of 4. But one of the things I learned is you can't build a reputation on what you're going to do. You have to show people something. Using Lou's skills and some of the others, we actually started to build product that they would want. You also have to know your customer. Our customer is very interested in gangs and guns and drugs. So once you can show them something about gangs, guns and drugs, you've actually got them hooked. Lou had built a map of gangs for Bay of Plenty. What, where, why, where are they coming from? We had lots of information on drugs, how much and where. We test wastewater to find out how many drugs are in the water system. We have information on licensed gang holders. We also have an enormous database called National Intelligence, which holds all of the police information, our data. So using the team's expertise, we could show the bosses what we could do now in a form that they'd not seen before. And at the same time, we could say what we'd like to do. You have to paint a picture using words that visualize. So I would say to them, can you imagine if we could show you on a map the relationship between gang growth and harm, where all the hotspots are? And a lot of you would have heard about the 501s and the various gangs that have come in over the last few years. I wanted to know where they were spreading to. How were they tracking down the country? Because most of them are in places like Auckland and Tauranga. How are they getting down? Where are they going to be next? At the smaller end of the scale, if they've stolen cars, where are they most likely to end up? We can show them things like that. You also have to make things easy. So we rolled out training and we incorporated all the data sets nationally so that our staff had the information at their fingertips. Gangs, alcohol harm, volume crime, as well as drugs and others. All of this was built for them. You can't do this without a talented team, and that's what I've got. I just need to ask and they'll think of a way to do it. What we were doing was trying to remove the siloing in police. It's 14,000 people, you're going to get silos. And they will build their own stuff as well. Some of it not very good, but we try and help. So deploying self-help tools like the volume crime map using ArcGIS Enterprise vastly increased accessibility to users. It reduces also our resilience on ArcGIS Pro desktop licenses and in turn helps us to control costs, really important for us. We also need to look at operations. One thing you learn about police is where the power is. And the power sits with CIB, Criminal Intelligence Bureau, the detectives. It also sits with tactical intelligence, because tactical intelligence, they're pulling in intelligence to actually protect the front line and to protect all of you. So I went to CIB, knowing full well that they were about to launch an operation, and convinced them that they needed us, that we could tell them stuff that they couldn't find simply by using our maps. We're now deeply embedded in that operation. And can I also just say to you, because I've got an audience, don't believe everything you say in the media. The police are not soft on gangs. We are working on gangs all the time, but the gangs are fast and they're growing and they're dangerous. That's the reality. Most often, we can find something that will link someone. Just as an example, licensed gang holders also have contacts that happen to be in gangs. We can figure out who they are. We can figure out how gangs get their guns, where they get them from. Most recently, we've been looking at ram raids. Who, where, who, what. The maps on the screen are of St Luke's Mall and what's happening in Auckland. This is a major issue for us. The ram raids, as you know, are happening every single day. The thing is, the people that are doing those ram raids are of a certain age group that makes it very difficult for us to do anything about them. But it is a focus. So the more that we can provide for them where these kids are coming from, where they're going to dump their cars, where they're going to, the better. Making a difference to the front line matters to us. And I'll give you a very quick example that the guys were going in to raid a particular property. It was a crucial operation in a rural property. All they had was an old map, and I believe it was 1 to 2 years old. On the day of that raid, they rang and said, could you get a more recent map for us? The team got a map from Maxar. It was only 3 days old. The operation changed literally hours before they went in. The trees they thought they were going to use for cover were now gone. They could have walked into a very bad situation. So it's things like that that we can do that they didn't know that we could do. We also reached out to people who worry about alcohol. Is there a correlation between suburban alcohol outlets and crime harm? Of course there is, not surprising. But we could actually show them that, and we can start to layer things, or as Dwayne has taught me, it's like a pizza. Every time they ask for something, we can add another layer, they can get another view. Sometimes those maths look a bit messy. But information like this helps us to know where to focus and where to object and where to find people we want to find. Critical to us is the use of mobility devices. We're working quite hard on that to make it easy for the front line to do things. I can keep on thinking about what we should be able to do. If I see somebody, can I just click it straight away? Can I pinpoint them on a map? Can it go back to near? I think we call it quick capture. So that's where we need to go. We also had a recent spate of false school bomb threats. So to help demonstrate that we used quick capture. This month, we're deploying our first ArcGIS app on police mobiles using quick capture. Our potential is endless, and despite limited resources, when anyone asks me if we can do something, much to the horror of my team, I always say yes. Of course, it depends on resources, but even if we can't do 100%, I have absolute faith that my staff can do 70 or 80%, and the rest of it you can negotiate around the margins. If we had a bigger budget, I think we could do 120%. So, Lou, Dwayne and Amir, this is really a call out for you, because New Zealand is a safer place because of the work that my team do. What I've learned is you don't need to know everything. You just need to know enough, and you must be able to sell a vision. You need to surround yourself with talented people who are smarter than you, but you really have to realise we can't all be the same. My skills are imagining, influencing, networking, marketing. Dwayne always says street skills, which means I'm pretty good at arguing. Others would say bullshit as well. So, and they cope with that, which is really good, because they usually pull me aside afterwards and say, you know, you really can't do that. I never take no for an answer either, so as I said before. But we all have different strengths, different technical skills. But for me, my team are the diamonds. They are the ones that are going to keep us safe. So one last challenge. As I said to you, I worked for the Regional Council a number of years ago, and I imagined that police, fire, ambulance, local government would all have the same data sets. I imagined when I arrived at police that there would be a switch and we would turn it on and it would all be there and we'd be able to work together. It isn't, and I think we need to be there. It's been done in Victoria with their digital twin, and I've heard you talk about it. I understand it's a $40 million budget. I don't think that that's much to save all of the damage that happens in this country because we are not connected and not working together. So my challenge to you is let's think of a way that we can do it. Because, as Marty McFly says, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. And I'm now going to hand over to Ali, who's put her mind to keeping rural New Zealand safe. Thank you.
Kia ora everyone, morning. My name is Ali Rutherford. I am currently working in police in the National Prevention Centre. So National intelligence is one arm. National prevention is the, I think I was introduced to it to the brainy wing, not the evidence-based policing, but there's a lot of brains in there. And what they do is they take all the data that's collected across police, and they come up with preventative measures based on what's happening in and around the communities. So national prevention, iwi in communities, that is my main focus. Rural Lookout actually came off the back of a national burglary prevention initiative. So in national prevention, we've got several initiatives, and it is literally everything from alcohol harm all the way through to retail crime and everything in between. Burglary is a big issue across police for people to respond to and to the communities. And I imagine if we were to do the stand-up, sit down, if I said how many people in this room have been burgled, there's going to be at least one person, if not more. A couple of years ago, Eagle Tech worked with fed farmers. So iwi in communities, we've got a lot of stakeholders across the community. Fed farmers and FMG were big involved in the Rural Lookout, and so big shout out to them. There was a rural crime survey sent out, and I think there was about 1,200 respondents, and they had all said, or many of them had said, that they're at least in the last month they had been victims of crime in the rural community, but the disappointing thing is that they hadn't reported it, and so police were completely unsighted to what was actually happening in the rural communities. It worked. Rural crime. The reason that people aren't reporting or weren't reporting, especially in and around the rural communities, is because the lack of resource for the police to respond. So if you take the smaller suburbs like Oxford, Murchison, they have 1 or 2 police officers at most. So resourcing is an issue. They can't necessarily get from one end of the district to the other to respond to absolutely everything. And so farmers know this, rural lifestyle block owners know this. They basically came back and said, we don't report these crimes because they just happen. We know that they happen and nothing can get done about it. So putting the police sort of lens on that, police can't do anything about it if they don't know about it. So it's kind of a chicken and egg, which is where the prevention teams come in and they're starting to see what can we put into place as far as mitigants go to reduce the crime so we can actually have the focus on the stuff to get the police officers in the right place at the right time. Rural Lookout came off the back. We were quite fortunate because at the same time, the National Intelligence Centre had just brought in NZEUC, or the ArcGIS suite, the online stuff. We don't have a lot of money, and there's a lot of no's. So what I got brought in to do is put the rugby kit on and go tackling those no's and snipping through the red lines. So any technical delivery in government, I'm sure lots of you have experienced it, moves, if you're lucky, at the pace of a glacier, because there is a lot of governance to go through, a lot of loopholes and a lot of paperwork. So bringing into prevention, we've got a limited amount of time, we've got a limited amount of budget, and we need to actually get some stuff out there. And the key thing for the crime initiatives is data. So actual environmental information, it just doesn't exist and it doesn't come through freely. So leaping onto Esri and bringing and showcasing the spatial dimension to reporting to help people understand where the crimes are happening gives the opportunity to understand and bring the insights into why the crime is happening. So I can remember sitting in front of Claire Johnstone a couple of years ago with a concept, why don't you use your Esri suite to start collecting that data? We wanted to try and build something that was almost throwaway, dare I say it, in a very agile way. Again, some buzzwords there. We didn't want to integrate it, we didn't want to industrialise it because we just didn't have the time or the energy or the inclination to build an app that potentially wasn't going to work. So the versatility of the Esri suite, we've got online, we've got Survey 123. So as you can see up there, a lot of the feedback also that was coming through that survey, which is where the design started coming in, was farmers are busy people. They work out on the fields. They're not necessarily connected to the telephone signals or Wi-Fi, and they really don't have the time or the desire to sit on a phone call to call 105 and speak or wait on hold, should I say, for 45 minutes at the end of the day. They certainly didn't want to sit and type for 25, 30 minutes. They just wanted to get the information into police and just forget about it. So Survey 123, The design was that if a farmer was up a hill, they could literally take a picture, drop a pin, and say what's happened and forget about it. So a lot of trial and analysis went into this. So we actually got 16 minutes was our top for 10.5 to get it down, and that wasn't even putting any effort into it. For the Rural Lookout, if you do download it, it takes less than 2 minutes to complete. So that was quite appealing to the rural community. And so actually it was a lot of buy-in and a lot of support. So we did do lots of rural workshops with fed farmers and FMG to actually design this form to get it so it could be used by a 3-year-old or an 83-year-old. And the other end was the most entertaining end, because you can imagine not a lot of people over the age of 75 are tech savvy. So we've managed to crack it there as well. The other side of this is the information and actually just getting advice out to the communities. So Esri, again, we've got an Experience Builder website. So this just basically gives you the opportunity to actually learn about what's going on in the trial. So there is a QR code. It also gives people the opportunity to just use the web browser. So people don't always have the most up-to-date phone. There's a lot of people that don't have smartphones. Here they can actually still get online on a device and actually submit the survey through. So what I will do is encourage you to sort of QR code it, not now because I'm speaking, but afterwards. Go for it and have a crack, see what you think. If you do submit a survey, if you scroll down to the what's happened, there is one that says training. Because obviously we don't want to sort of send panic alarms that there is a crime wave happening in the Christchurch city centre today. On the user side, again, so we had sort of two different user groups. We had the sort of the rural community and then we had the police staff inside. So how are we going to best use this technology? And through sort of online, we've got the Experience Builder dashboard, and the reason we went with Experience Builder and not Hub was because Experience Builder just gave us a little bit more functionality and interactiveness for the police officers to actually use. So essentially what happens is someone out on the ground drops a pin, it whizzles its way through, and we've captured it. So this isn't real data, don't worry, it's just the trial stuff. Pictures come through, locations come through, and there is an opt-in function rather than an opt-out for the actual survey itself. So what we did get back from the community was that they didn't really want to have to talk to people if they didn't want to. So there is a little button on that survey that says, do you want someone to give you a call? And then we've got some staff, some lovely staff who will call and say, sorry about what's happened, tell us a bit more. This is basically operationalising that. So if there is a yes, then it gets put to the top, and the actual team that are dealing with this will get the details, and they will then call and find out what's going on. The other reason we did this is because we do need, from a reporting standard, and this goes into the governance and the information management side, we needed to actually officially record this in the national sort of recording standards and all the police reports. So it's easy for people to just kind of almost copy and paste and put it into the police official system. So down at the bottom there, they're the key things, and I don't think this is kind of any surprise to anyone. You've got sort of identifying what's going on, reporting, collating, analysing and targeting. And so that's the whole ethos of the prevention stream in this space. So we're collecting all the data that we don't normally have. We're reporting it up. So actually it's quite interesting, picking up on what Claire was saying, that a lot of people up the chain in police don't quite understand what's going on. So giving it to them in a sort of a spatial report helps them to understand where the clusters are, and it's sort of, everyone's gone mapping mad, which is good, certainly from the prevention side. What's happened? We've hit the news. We're great. So actually working with our partners in the community is something that we did find is that there's a lot of press and there's a lot of engagement. So again, big thanks to Fed Farmers and FMG, along with our other community support. They're the ones that have pushed it out because they're the ones that are actually getting the community on board with this to use this. So the trial itself is going to run for 2 years to collect as much data as we can. We're getting sort of we've got a report as up to August. So we've got a stand in the community hub. I don't know if it's the big blue flag at the back. We've got pens and lollies, so please come over and see us and we can talk you through. But we've got the stats as well. So from the launch in May, we've had 2,500 downloads of the app, and we've had a sort of a steady flow of reports that are coming through. This in the future will hopefully inform channel strategy for police. So actually, if an application is the best way forward, then that might be the next thing that you'll see out on the police apps. If not, this is going back to the sort of throwaway build and agile sense. If it fails or it flops or it's just not being adopted, the way that we've built it now in the Esri suite is that we can literally switch it off and nothing's left and nothing's lost. Getting through that red tape though with ICT, that was the challenge, and that's where I come in with my street fighting skills. So that's what are we learning? Other than Rangiora is the crime hotspot of Canterbury, the top 3 crimes that we're getting through now, as you can imagine, it's actually suspicious people and vehicles, and that could be connected to things like poaching or spotlighting, if any of you in the rural communities. The next one down is actually just theft of small things that have gone missing in and around yards, so chainsaws, fuel, etc. And then the third thing, actually, which was a real surprise to us, not necessarily localised to rural crime, but it's street racing and drag racing. And so having that information now has helped us sort of put the police in the right space at the right time, but now starting to think about the future preventative measures. So what does that look like? We've got a bucket of money, which is from a tri-agency pot. So we've got Justice, Corrections and Police, and that is to build and buy preventative measures to see if it stops. So that could be anything from street cameras, high fences, fuel alarms, tamper alarms, speed bumps, just things like that to reduce these activities in the community so the police in the uniform can attend to other stuff that's a little bit more important at the time. What we've had said, and I'll leave it with this one, you can read, so far so good. The actual feedback is that it's easy, it's quick, and people like to engage because of COVID, I guess everybody's gone app mad, they don't like face-to-face communication anymore, it's all a bit weird. So we've capitalised on that as well, and it's driving the innovation, and I think the only reason that we were successful, so timelines prepared to be standard. We managed to go from inception or a concept to delivery in less than 10 months. And that was pushing through government ICT programs and processes. So in an agile way, the versatility of the Esri suite specifically is what enabled this to happen. So I'm already getting flashed at by the clock. So I'm going to head off. If you want to know more, please do come over because it was an interesting journey. And we've already started on our next one. And I think I'm probably going to get kicked out of police because I'm the one that keeps pushing it. So thanks very much, everybody. We'll see you soon.